All right, everybody, I promised you the second half of the April Palmer experience. We're going to do it today on the show. It is technically the third time April Palmer has been on the show, setting a record for all guests in all histories of the show. We really wanted to make sure that we did her service. We got deep into the weeds, as she had mentioned, on her first buying experience. But hell, it was worth it. And it was great to hear about the good things going on in our industry. Today, however, we're about to get into something I think that's going to make me angry. I think it's going to have me out of my chair. I guarantee it's going to have some people spinning their heads around. So, April, thank you for coming back and giving us the next version of what happened.
Of course. I feel like maybe I should have done like a quick change in clothes or something.
You know, I thought the same thing, but the reality is this is all a world of editing. So, I just didn't want to have folks sitting around for an hour and a half hearing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. I figure we'll give them 30 at it, and then we'll give them 30 more. So we're here to bring back the next 30. April, we talked about purchase one, fun, great experience, why you did it, what you traded, where you were going. Why did we need car number two?
So I actually didn't need card number two, but because I have a history in the automotive industry and I tend to be pretty smart, and I had a great buying experience with my Subaru Crosstrek, the Fuck It Bucket.
If you guys don't know what that means, you got to go back and watch last week's episode. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's legitimately what the car is called via the state she lives in, which still is outstanding to me. Great job, by the way, getting that done. All right. So this purchase happened after the Crosstrek?
So this happened after the Crosstrek. Yep. One of my very, very dear friends, who also she is one of the most intelligent, like book smart and life smart humans I know. She's incredibly successful. She's been on the C-suite across, I think, 4 Fortune 100 companies. She knows what's up, right? And she calls me and she says, hey, I'm thinking about buying a convertible Jag from a company called Car Lots that was started and is based here in Richmond. And I know the founders. They're amazing, fantastic humans. And she said, but I'm like, I feel a little out of my league with this. Will you come with me? So first moment here, right, is that we are two incredibly intelligent women. I would say that she is smarter than I am by far. And she's going to buy a car and she's like, I need some moral support and some brain support. And so like, we actually talked about it when we got together. How weird is it that as female car buyers, we kind of feel like we need wingmen to go in sometimes. I had my kids when I
Interesting how you all chose other women, though. Yeah. It's interesting, because again, if you thought you were up against it, you'd be like, hey, I probably need a guy with me. But I guess the figure there is 2 women better than a guy. So
but also like Sean, I think for me, and I can't speak for her, but for me, if I had to take a guy in with me to have somebody talk to me like I have brains in my head, I would have been pissed. I would have fucking biked, right? Like, I wouldn't have bought a car if I had to take a guy with me just to get respect from the people. So I do think that's kind of a moment, right?
Agreed. Yeah, no. And it's interesting that she would bring you as her, what we call a third base coach in the industry, when someone brings someone else along who isn't a part of the buying process, doesn't actually sign on the piece of paper. You brought a third baseman who'd already, bought a car. You were fresh into it anyway. So it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. All right. So the 2 of you show up.
So we show up.
Yeah.
And we go in and she says, I'd like to test drive this Jaguar. And
she put in the same amount of research. Do you know? I mean, again, you vouch for her, but was it like a similar thing for her where she kind of went through a bunch of hoops to get there? Or she just was like, look, saw a convertible Jag, love it, found a dealer who has it, want to buy?
So actually I think she was thinking about buying a fun car and was looking and ran across this one. I'll tag my Instagram reel to it. It's a bright orange convertible Jag. It's like a 2-seater. It's super cute. And she just saw it while she was looking for fun cars. Like, I think she probably Googled sports cars near me. One of her home bases is Charlottesville, Virginia. So it's about 45 minutes an hour from where I live. The car was here in Richmond. So that was another reason. She was like, hey, it's a great excuse to see you. But also I'd like, instead of just like, let's connect after I go see it, she was like, come with me, help me with this process.
Okay.
She sees it. I think she must have let them know we were coming, right? I'm pretty sure that she probably called them or did something.
Called ahead, guys. She used the phone. She called you. She's serious. All right.
And just for context, this is the type of woman who is she's single, she doesn't have kids, she works these C-suite jobs, she makes a lot of money. She could just write you a check for this car. She could write you a check for any car that she wants. She owns, I think, 8 properties around the world. She does Airbnb. She makes a lot of money. And so she has called ahead. We roll up. The funniest part is I'm wearing like leggings and a sports bra because it's summer, and she's wearing overalls with paint splattered on it, right? Like we do not look like we could walk in and write a check for this car. 100% definitely not. So we go in, they give us the keys, the guy like shows us the car, whatever, we get in. And he just is kind of like takes a photocopy of her driver's license. And then it's like, okay, see ya. Like, so we're like, okay.
The car and told you two to go drive off.
Yep, just go. So
I mean, it's a 2-seater. That's not that weird for a 2-seater. You want people to enjoy the experience together. You don't have much to add. You just sort of let them go. Maybe you give them a hint on, hey, what route, but you're from there. So you kind of, hey, let's jump in and go for a ride. All right. Not that weird, but so photocopy, license, go drive.
Here we go. So first thing we do, we turn on music, right? We put the top down. We decide where we're going to go. I'm a big weenie when it comes to going fast. And so this is hilarious also that she had me come, because I was like, now don't go too fast. Like
in her convertible Jaguar while she's trying to let her hair down. All right. Way to go there, buzzkill.
Let's not exceed the speed limit, please. Right. But I mean, here it's 70 miles an hour.
With
here,
the girl
right?
who has a swear word on her license plate, not afraid of that. But I get it. I told you nowhere scares me more than Virginia driving fast. So I'm totally with you. I've never set my cruise to 2 over in my life, but in that state, I did, no doubt, for sure. All right.
Listen, Virginia has this like unspoken motto of like, exist at your own risk. Really, right? Like
I get that. I've driven through it. And I spent 48 hours in it. I agree with you. Yeah.
Like they just started putting lowered speed limits in construction zones. For a long time, like they didn't. And it was just kind of like,
yeah, but it felt like a setup. It felt like the cops knew there should be a different speed, but they were hoping you wouldn't notice. They'd be able to just whack you.
Use your best judgment or something.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, always good for people driving cars to use their best judgment. Yeah, that's not comforting, right? All right, so you're telling her, hey, let's not keep the gas pedal too heavy here.
And like drive like grannies. This is going to be awesome. So we're going around and we're doing all the things. And as we're doing this, we turn down the music and she's like, okay, talk me through. Car Lots has an interesting buying and selling model. What do you know about it? Well, I've watched Car Lots grow up in Richmond, and they used to be one of my customers whenever I worked for Hop Drive. I know quite a bit about what they do. They do a consignment model of car buying. So if they buy your car, they buy it on consignment, they clean it, detail it, advertise it for you, let people take test drives, whatever it is. And then when they sell it, that is when you get your money for the car. So it's a really interesting business model. As far as I know, one of the very few business models like that in the United States. They just IPO'd.
Yeah, I mean, it is unique. It's been around them for a while, right? With the way that they've developed it. And risk that comes on both sides that most people aren't willing to take when it comes to consignment. And it's an odd little deal. But for me, I mean, I get it because it limits your liability from a dealership perspective. Like I've got typically they're tiered agreements, right? 60-day, 90-day, 120 days, whatever they are. Right. So it's an interesting part that kind of puts both parties in a win-win position if you can afford to have your car on someone's lot without someone having paid you for it.
Right. Yeah. And then alternatively, they will give you a lower trade-in value and then just send it to auction. So you do have the ability to be non-consignment with them if you want, but you're going to take a hit on your trade-in value.
Sure.
So we're kind of walking through this and I'm taking her through and we're like planning our strategy a little bit, right? So we've talked about, she's now done the research. So she also went on Kelley Blue Book.
She's trading a car in?
she was thinking about it. She's like, I just don't know if I want to or not. If they give me a good deal on my trade, I will. And if they don't, I'll just buy the car, the Jack, right? So, because she doesn't need to. And she has a house in Ohio and a house in Charlottesville. And so she wanted to kind of like she drives back and forth. So she's like, I can just kind of like switch which car I'm driving wherever if I keep them. It's totally
not a bad deal. Not a bad deal.
Right? And then she can always fly if she wants to because she has a car at both houses. And there's a lot of her thinking about, again, she's very strategic. She knows what's up. So she's looked at her trade-in value on Kelley Blue Book, but I think that's it. I don't think she looked any further than that. She just wanted to kind of get an idea because she wasn't for sure if she was going to trade it in or not.
Fair enough.
Also done quite a bit of research on the value of the Jag, as well as like gone on and Googled like common mechanical issues with this car, right? Because it is a sporty car. I think I want to say it was like maybe like a 2016 or something. So like a little older, right? A little like not quite vintage, but getting there. And the value of it, like, right, do they have it priced at the right value? So she's done her Googling across multiple different sites. So we're talking about like, okay, if they offer this much for the trade, she will go ahead and trade it in, and then she'll just write a check for the balance of the car. But if they offer less than that, then she's going to keep them and she's going to finance the car unless they'll let her put it on her American Express, which is her preference. And if she could put it on her American Express, then she was willing to pay the service fee. So we've got like scenarios, right?
If she's willing to pay their 3.5 or whatever they're going to come to her with to put it on her card. Now, most people won't let you put it on your card because of its ability to be canceled as a transaction. There's a lot of liability for dealerships. Typically, just aside from the 2.5 or whatever that percentage is, there is still liability in part of that transaction.
Right. They can dispute it and those things. And my background, so this is one of the reasons we started talking about this, is I used to work for American Express. So I supported the largest privately owned businesses on the Eastern Seaboard for American Express. And one of the things that we would do at the end of the year, if companies needed to make capital equipment purchases for tax reasons, we would have them they would call the dealerships and they would buy a car on their American Express. That way they could have that capital expenditure that year, and then they could get their American Express points. They would still pay the fee, like everything. So this is something that I know, I'm familiar with. I've done it with multiple different companies and dealerships before I ever knew anything about the car business.
Okay.
So we've got scenarios. We know what's going on. We're like
you're ready to go. You guys are test driving. She loves the car. You guys, it's about now, how do we buy it? Not about should we?
Right. So she has decided, I am buying this car regardless. Those were the only scenarios that we built out, where I'm buying this car.
Okay.
So we get back to the dealership and we start talking about her trade, and they offered her significantly less than what we thought that they were going to offer her.
5K, 10K, 8K?
6K, I think.
6K less. That's significant. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And is this because of their buying, because of the way they're doing business on consignment, or was this because they were going to auction the car? What did they give you any reasoning as to why this may look different than what you were seeing?
If she wanted to auction the car, it would have gone down even more.
Wow. So this was their consignment buy price.
Right. And so she's like pulling out her Kelley Blue Book and saying like, I'm confused. Why is this? Especially where we are, like this was the summer, May maybe or so. So like, we're not out of the chip shortage.
This is like still the height of used car valuation. I mean, shit, Carvana stock was still worth something then. You know what I mean? Yes. Like in May of this year, it wasn't worth the dollars it's worth now. All right. So you're at the height of the industry as far as trade, customer acquisition. Everybody's talking about buying your trade from you in summer of this year. I mean, it's like the most, worn down message, for God's sakes, at this point.
Proactively calling people and being like, hey, I saw you drive down the road and thought, can I buy your car?
Buy your car? I've never wanted to buy it so bad in my life. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. All right. So this is a delta. 6K is a delta. That's not something that gets cured easily.
Yeah. So then we start talking through, and this is where I come in, because this is where she's a very, very straight shooter. I tend to have more of the golden tongue. So it was a really good partnership for us. So then I start coming through like, can you help us understand why that is? Can you help us co-create a situation where like maybe we take you increase the value of the trade by 3,000, but you take 3,000 off the cost of it. Like we're starting to negotiate with.
You're trying to make a car deal. I mean, you're going through and you're doing the penciling the car dealer right now where they should already be more proactive. What kind of excuses did you hear or reasoning did you hear for the 6K?
Just that's how much that
That's it.
they were like, if we buy it for this, we believe we can sell it for this, and this is the margin that we need to get. Now, like, I understand, right? But in this market right now, that's not the way that it works, right? And her car, it's beautiful, it's in perfect condition. So there's not like, it's not like mine.
There's no market additions or subtractions to it, miles, dents, damage, right. None of that stuff. She was probably reasonable about what she thought her value was based on KBB when she put it in. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah. And if they had been like 2,000 off, I think she would have been like, yeah, it's fine. Right. It's
yeah.
fine.
I think everyone knows the number won't be exact, but someone says to you 6K.
6K.
6K is that's a number. I don't care if you have money or don't have money. 6K is money. That is a tangible number. Okay.
Yeah. So then we start talking about, okay, not going to trade. Like, let's go to the scenario where you don't trade it in. And so you decide to finance the Jag. Yeah. And so then we start talking through that and what are the financing options. We bring up the credit card. They were like, absolutely not. We have a $2,000 credit card limit. And we explored that a little bit, but then we were like, okay, we're just going to leave that. We get it. We understand why it would be nice, right? Like, you buy a used Jag on your American Express, you have a first class ticket to.
I mean, that's a huge points value thing for the whole, that whole relationship of the card member. Right. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So then at that point, she's looking at it going, if I can buy the Jag. So this is where we go. Cause we're like sidebarring, right? And she's like, what if I can buy the Jag on my Amex? And that makes up a huge part of the delta of the trade. And then I still go ahead and trade. And I was like, that's pretty good. But let's talk about the fact that then, like, if you trade, then you don't spend as much on your Amex. Are the points value going to be there? So then we start calculating that, because again, this is my background. So we're like, Sean, the reason I'm kind of going through how we're doing this is because we're doing this in front of the salesperson. And
I was going to say, when you say sidebar, you don't mean you guys left anywhere.
Oh,
you
no.
just turned to each other and spoke while someone sat on the other side of the desk.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's standing there, we're here, and I start running conversion numbers to, like, if you spend this much on your Amex, what does this mean from a points perspective to these different things? We are obviously intelligent beings. And I cannot stress that enough, that our interaction with him was that we are intelligent beings. So then we come back and we're like, okay, talk us more through the consignment. One question that we have is, because you have to wait until it sells to get your money for it, right? So we're like, what happens? How long do we have to wait?
How long do we give you? Because the book changes on cars every 30 days. So how long before you're going to tell me it's no longer worth that? Or what is the game to be played afterwards?
Right. So we start asking, and I just said to him, it's a very simple question, Sean. I said to him, what is the average number of days that cars sit on your lot before they get sold, or you call and offer to send it to auction at a lower price?
What a beautiful question. The DOL people, what is days on lot? Asked by the consumer. I'm going to bet you the sales guy was like, I got to ask a manager.
He says, well, we don't sell a lot of SUVs, so it's going to be different than cars. So he hasn't given me a number. He's just told me we don't sell a lot of SUVs, so it's going to be different than cars. And I said, that's okay.
They would be the only ones not selling SUVs, by the way, April. All right. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone tell me in today's market where what's being produced is 80% SUVs. Someone goes, yeah, I'm real big in the sedan business.
Right. Yeah, right. No, it's such a weird thing. So I was like, okay, well, like, maybe it's easier for you to break out the numbers. Let's just group them all together and we will understand that SUVs are different. And then let's talk about, like, is it different because they stay on the lot for longer? Because gas prices are really high because it's summer, and that happened this summer.
It definitely happened. It was definitely a thing for sure.
We understand. We are two women who follow global, economic macro and micro trends. This is something that we do. And he says, he says, well, we don't have an average number of days. And I said, well,
That's
like,
false. That has got to be patently false for your business model. You have to know your DOL in order to know your return rate, overhead. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
It is absolutely ridiculous. So I said, I was like, what do you mean you don't have an average number of days? I said, it's pretty easy, right? Like you take how many cars you've sold in the last 30 days and how long they sat on lot, and you like add it all together, and then you divide.
We're not trying to do physics here, folks. We're doing simple A plus B math shit divided by this. Boom, we got ourselves. It's always amazing how people don't understand how to do a sales trend, right? If you sell 30 cars in 30 days, you need to sell a car a day. And that's the math, right? That's how we get to the math, and that's what we know. So, and again, all right, and let me say this, a salesman not knowing DOL, that's that weird to me. Okay. But the fact that a salesman couldn't walk over to a desk and say, guys, average days on lot for SUVs versus cars, and no one had that answer, that's some poor running shit right there. I'm sorry.
He didn't. This is the jaw-dropping moment, Sean. I was like, it's pretty easy, actually. Like, here's the formula to do it. And he looks me dead in the eye, Sean. And he goes, that's not how averages work.
Wait, I'm sorry. So math, as it's historically written, this isn't some weird Canadian shit where we're going into the metric system. This is a simple A plus B discussion. And he tells you that's not how averages work.
And it's not even like, that's not how we calculate averages in the automotive industry, which
it's just an overall math discussion that you don't actually know how to calculate the average of something. Yeah. By combining all of them, getting the total, and then dividing by the number of assets you put into the total. Yeah. I'm sorry. That is exactly how you write a fucking average. So
100% how math
works. So both of you, this is happening to the both of you right now, right here. A guy looks you both in the face and tells you that the world is flat and you don't know how to do fucking averages. What happens?
That's not how math works. And I was like, what? I'm sorry, what?
I would have just been like, okay, cool. So just quickly walk me through this. Watch this. Okay. Yep. Divide. Now there's the average, right? No, so nothing. Right. He thinks you guys are what? Trying to play games? Well, I just don't understand why we would even say to you, I don't get it.
I think it's a combination of things. He was young, and I think he probably panicked a little bit, right? But that's when you go get your manager. And like, I had given him the keys too. I was like, I've been in the automotive industry for years. And I told him, I was like, I'm not going to be an asshole, right? Like, I just have some questions that are important to us. That's why I'm here. Like we told him, that is why I'm here.
The fact that people who sell cars on consignment couldn't give you that answer, I'm sorry, it's like the most basic thing. And the fact that you asked it is fucking phenomenal. And I encourage anyone consumer-based watching this to go out and think about that, and to ask people, if someone brings up the word consignment, ask them how long your car is going to sit on their lot by average. Okay, by average.
I'm going to give you my car, and 120 days later, it still sits there. I have significant money in this asset. I'm still paying a car payment if I have one. I'm still paying insurance because I still have to, because it's still my name.
I can't just tell my insurance company it's sitting on your lot for consignment. They don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. It's still legally and liably in my name.
You can't call the state and be like, hey, don't charge me property tax for this 120 days.
Because I'm not actually going to be in the house for those days. So thanks, and I'll see you when I get back.
I'm not paying my mortgage for the 5 days that I'm on vacation this month. Like, you can't do that. So it was a really important question. And we just kind of looked at each other, and she was like, oh, fuck. And I was like, yeah, fuck. And so at that point, we went outside. We're like, we'll be right back. So we go outside, and we're like, and she's like,
we want this car. Do we want to do business with these people after them just telling us that the earth is flat and our math is wrong?
Yeah. So the solution that we land on, this was only slightly less shitty to the salesperson than him telling me that I don't know how math works. The solution that we landed on was that we went out and got drinks and apps and hung out. And then she went back to Charlottesville. And the next morning she called the car lots at Charlottesville and said, hey, you have a Jaguar on one of your lots in Richmond. Would you transport it up to car lots here in Charlottesville, which again, 45 minutes, an hour away, and I'll buy it from you. And she went and bought it from a different sales rep, a different car lots sales rep.
Wow. And a company has good structure to be able to allow to do that. So I'm proud of them for being able to do that. Now, she doesn't trade?
She didn't trade. No. And at the end, what's kind of crazy about it is at the end, it ended up she bought it and she took it to the mechanic to kind of like have it serviced and get ready to drive it up to Ohio. And it had like a critical issue with the car that the mechanic figured out. And at the end of it, it took about 3 to 4 weeks or so, but they ended up buying the car back from her at the price that she had, because it was going to cost like $8,000 to fix it or something like that. So she ended up not even keeping it after all of this. But that's a whole different conversation. That's like a used car. They should have known it. There was like,
yeah, but here's the thing. This is the flaw in the business model, April. When you're in consignment, you only care so far. You're only going to put in so much work to have someone else's car sit on your lot.
Yeah.
And that is a flaw of the model, is that you don't go through a really hefty inspection, a really big deal, because you're like, look, dude, it's somebody else's car. We'll figure it out. And what a hassle for whoever's Jag is on consignment, right? Because the car goes away, car comes back. How the fuck's that work? Whose responsibility now is that?
Right. Yeah. Who does it? And I actually I just got a ding. I have a meeting in 10 minutes. In the middle of all of this happening, I had lunch with one of the founders of Car Lots, because he's a dear friend of mine. And so I was telling him the story, and he's not in that business anymore, but obviously it's dear to his heart. And he was just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe this. And he was so sweet about it, like such a nice guy and so empathetic, but you could tell he was just like, what? Right?
He's mortified. He's mortified by averages. Yeah. He's mortified by the fact that it had to be transferred amongst lots. It's mortified the car came back to him. Now, is this something your friend would look to do business with these people again?
No, she won't. She won't.
No. And how long were you two at the dealership? I didn't get into that. How long? I know we had a lot of back and forths and sidebars, but how long before you went out for drinks and apps and left for the day were you there arguing about math?
With the test drive and everything, I think it was probably about, I would say 2 hours total from the time that like we got there, got the keys, he walked us around, we went on our test drive, we came back, we had these conversations, and
2 hours of no purchase. And you bought a car in 45 minutes.
Yeah. I will tell you this, that my understanding, and I wasn't there, but my understanding of the process in Charlottesville was so easy. Like they made it all, because she wasn't trading in anything. She knew what she wanted. She told them they had the paperwork ready for her. She took a lift over, signed the paperwork, and drove off. Right. Like it was like that.
Same company, different process. So you see, that's where it gets murky. As an owner of a business, you got to ensure that things look and feel the exact same way across all of your locations, because people brand recognize, right? People say, Car Lots, I'm going to go there, right? I used to work for the Men's Warehouse when I was younger, and it was imperative that every location operated the exact same way, because it didn't matter to the CEO of the company what store of his you went in. What mattered is when you did, it all went the exact same way as you would have expected it, from California to New York to Texas.
Right. I mean, it's the reason why, like, I go to a Morton Steakhouse whenever I'm in Charleston or somewhere. Like, I know that it's a restaurant where I'm going to get whatever. Like, and that's just an example.
Yeah. It's the right example, though. You're right. It's the idea of going and using recognition of a brand and saying, look, this is why I go here. It's why I use an airline, right? Or why I do a certain thing is because I know it's an experience I can almost bank on for the most part. And when I don't get it, I'm disappointed, or when they exceed, I'm excited. But for the average experience, okay, is that I know what I'm going to get. So there's something to be said about that, for sure.
So, and the whole return process, it got clunky for her. Like there were some moments, right, where she called me and she's like, hey, do you think you could call one of the guys you know over there and like see? And at the end of the day, they ended up doing right by her. But
it wasn't a simple do right. It was not cut and dry. I guarantee you, this girl had to beg her ass off. She had to fight and claw and call people and threaten, probably at some level somewhere along the way, just to get an idea.
Within days of her buying it, right? Like, it's not like she had it for 6 months. or 3 months, and she came back and said like, oh, by the way, there's something wrong with it. And like, maybe it was her. She maybe had the car for 4 days, and 2 of those days were at the mechanic before they identified this. So she wasn't driving it. She wasn't like, and it was a critical issue. But the funny part of this, Sean, and I think this is where like I talk a lot about like how do you create raving fans? A lot of it is process, but you've got the thing that we talk about when I see my friend, the thing that we talk about is not the fact that the car had to go back. We look at each other and we say, oh, that's not how math works. And then we like laugh until we tinkle our Spanx. I full snort laugh and do like the donkey, like hee-haw. And we get the giggles, and we can giggle over that for hours together every time we see each other. It has nothing, like all the other stuff was water under the bridge. It was
the experience is gone, right? It doesn't matter. The only thing that sticks is the fact that someone told you that's not how math works.
The absurdity of him saying that after I asked, like, what is a great question, and seems like a very reasonable, logical question.
Beyond reasonable.
For him to just like not even acknowledge that he didn't know it, or that's not something that he tracks or anything, just kind of act like I was the idiot for asking and that I don't know how math it. Like we laugh hysterically about that. And in our minds, that is what that brand always will be, is that's not how math works.
Wow. Well, I'm not sure that's exactly the association one was looking for, but it's the reality. So April, wrap this up for me. You've been more than gracious with your time. Give me one piece of advice for a dealership and give me one piece of advice for a consumer based on everything you've learned.
From a dealership perspective, the number one thing that you can do is listen to your clients. And this is not a fucking NPS score. Like, sorry, NPS scores are very, very important, but that's not what it is. Get into the weeds with your customers. Sit down with them and ask them, why did you buy from us? What went really well? What didn't go well? And by the way, the customers who don't buy from you, offer them a $50 gift certificate to spend 20 minutes and tell you why they didn't buy from you, because that's more important.
Love it.
Who did buy from you, because this is where you're losing customers. And that's the delta between good and great, right?
Agreed. All right. So number one, listen to your customers. By the way, did that cost you? Nothing.
Nothing.
Zero. It's proper training of salespeople, and salespeople selling cars is about to get a lot harder. Okay. Yeah. It's not going to be this whole come on in, pay sticker, have a nice day, make more money than you've ever made. That ship is out to sea, my friends. The new will be a little bit different for you. It's going to be a little bit tighter. I don't think it's going to be this big, long 2008, 2009 scenario, but I do believe it will be different than the last 2 years. All right, April, consumers, what can they do? What should they do? What should they know?
Okay, consumers, Google that shit. Like Google the hell out of it. Look everywhere. Look under rocks. Have a wingman come with you if you need to, right? Like if you feel like you need an extra set of eyes, which you probably do, don't feel pressured. Identify your top 2 or 3 buying criteria and like make sure you question why those are your buying criteria. They might be stupid, like, right? They might be, but they might not be. And identify them, stick with them, communicate, and like go until your gut tells you that it's the right thing. You will know when you find the right dealership group and the right salesperson who's listening to you and will treat you right. A car is the second largest purchase that a consumer will make in the United States. Well,
and we don't what, given home prices, it's quickly becoming the number one for a lot of people who cannot afford to even look at a home. Right. And I think a lot of people forget that. And for car salesmen, you forget you might sell 10, 15, 20 cars a month. People are buying cars 3, 4, 5 years in between. So remember, it's always their first time. Have some respect for that. Have some understanding of that, some willingness to listen. April, you have been phenomenal. I cannot thank you enough for coming on. It has been great. Thank you so much for doing it. Folks, thank you. Make sure you check out April Palmer. She is all over LinkedIn is where I see her. I'm sure she's on the gram. I'm sure you can find her damn near anywhere social media is to be had. Thank you again, April. We appreciate you coming on.
All right. Love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Everyone, have yourselves a great week. We'll do it all again next week. Thank you a lot.